Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Without wasting anyone's time, I'm just going to tell you all that this run wasn't possible, nor did I even finish it. But I will share my experience up to the point of quitting, so I hope you all enjoy it. The one and only rule of this run was I simply couldn't walk, so any use of the left stick was strictly forbidden if I wasn't hacking or in a flight unit. With introductions out of the way, I appropriately named the save file, and began the fun. Once the short flight unit section was over, it was time to start the run. Well, I say run, but I won't be having any of that. Many of you might be wondering how am I going to move if I can't walk. Well, thankfully you can still evade without having to move, although you'll only ever be able to go backwards with the evade, and with every attack you do you can move forward a little bit. I opted to use the charged light attack most of the time because it covers the most distance in the least amount of time. And as for changing my direction, I could lock onto any enemy and the camera would follow whatever I was locked onto, but this method was mostly unreliable. The other way you could change your direction is by using pod programs, because every time you do use them, 2B does this little move which changes your direction to wherever your camera is pointing. So that is how you can move in this game without walking. So how did my first fight go? Surprisingly, not too bad. As for the buzzsaw boss, it was also easy to take down, and thankfully enough I could still dodge its attacks without walking. After skipping through 9S's dialogue, I was able to not walk through the factory, so evading was used for speed while charge attacks for precision. And whenever you do evade, it ever so slightly turns you because you don't evade perfectly straight. Making my way through the factory was a really slow process, and especially so whenever I encountered a 2D side-scroller section, with a set of stairs specifically. Like here for example. The angling was all off because of the evade, but thankfully with the pod I could set 2B on a straight path up the stairs. This whole process would have been easier if I wasn't so focused on opening up the shortcuts in the factory for later. And in no time at all, I also got really tired of listening to this constantly. I spent a couple of minutes evading in this spot to try to get the angling right so I can jump across the gap onto the crane to open up the shortcut. But after many attempts I got really tired of trying, so I gave up and evaded into the silo. The machines inside the silo weren't an issue, I just sliced and diced them into machine parts then moved along. Inside the factory was annoying because it was mostly 2D and top-down perspectives, which made for some awkward angles. After many minutes, I made my way down to this section here, which had the second shortcut that I was actually able to open. Many more minutes later, I made it outside of the factory, picked up any loot I could find, then swung my sword and bought into this bridge until the game took over and made 2B walk herself. The dual buzzsaws were very easy to beat. I just stuck to a corner, kept my distance, and let loose with my pod until it was time for the big machine himself. This boss fight was surprisingly easier than I would have expected. With just the right timing, I was able to dodge his attacks whenever he slammed his hands together. Once the Goliath decided to head underneath the bridge, I almost kicked the bucket because my evade was barely fast enough to make it to the other end of the bridge. I dodged his bridge attack again and made my way up to 9S. I was able to get on the ladder thankfully because the angling here was really weird. I cleared out all the small machines in an attempt to help 9S, then was in a flight unit fight. I did the flight unit fight like normal and now I'm in space. This is not even a part of the script, just great transitioning skills, Tristan, that was amazing. Now, as silly as it may seem, the hardest part of this challenge so far is the hallway in the bunker and trying to enter any room because the bunker is a 2D section, but with slight curves. That made it very difficult to even try to enter the command room. After about 13 minutes of struggling, I got in, talked to the commander, then struggled my way into the next room. Thankfully, entering the elevator was much easier than what it could have been because I accidentally talked to 9S about changing his combat style. Then when I backed out of the menu, he walked into the elevator and pushed me into it. Took long enough. Once the elevator headed up, I was stuck. Because when you're inside it, you can't do any other action but walk. So that was unfortunately the very first mandatory walking section. I took a second to jot that down on my notes, slowly walked out of the elevator, then continued swinging and evading to the flight unit. Another flight unit section was up, so let's just skip over that. And any interest in learning a not so fun fact? Apparently, you can't grab onto your pod to slow down your fall if you're not using the left stick to move.
Proposal. Proceed to target location.
So by not doing that, I almost had a very fatal experience and had to play it safe because I had no other healables left. Before heading to the resistance camp, I went back to the factory to pick up my items because I really didn't want to die even before starting the actual game. I got my items back after another struggle just trying to get up the stairs, then made my way to the camp. I talked to the leader, helped the maintenance shopkeeper, and bought some expansions for my plug-in chips. I made my way to this field here to pick up some complex gadgets to help the weaponsmith with his troubles, made my way back to him ever so slowly, got rewarded for my troubles, and upgraded the virtuous contract to level 2. I wanted to do a little test, so I saved my game at the resistance camp, then went back to the bunker. Because I really wanted to get the Your Hit Issue blade because of the discount it gives you for upgrading it, I decided to see if having to manually walk out of the elevator was a one-time thing or if it would be a common occurrence. After yet another long struggle of me trying to get inside the elevator, 9S thankfully helps me again, and, well, it is a common occurrence. Well, that's a shame. I'm just gonna reload the last checkpoint and move on to the desert. The desert was a fun place to not walk around in. I herded myself along to the stranded pods so that way I could change my direction more frequently. I unlocked both the access points in the desert so that way I could fast travel to them later. Took out all the groups of machines with mass to progress the story along and eventually made it to the desert housing.
Analysis. It is the ruin of a former human residential area.
I picked up the large sword, Fang of the Twins, destroyed even more groups of mass machines, and nearly became Android Stew. I swung myself down to the arena and witnessed some machine intercourse. Gross. After witnessing that, I decided to go on a machine murdering spree. The fight with Adam was surprisingly easy, even without walking. I guess that's to be expected when you play this game as much as I do. Adam went down with relative ease, and it was time to make our escape. Before even starting this run, I thought this part was going to be impossible because of the ground crumbling, but I did make it out. I guess they make it seem like you don't have long when you really have all the time in the world. Now, here was an interesting predicament. Because this crate was blocking my way out, and the only way to move it out of the way was to push it, I had to find another way around. Thankfully, there was another exit in this area that led back to the desert housing. The only problem being that there's this gap in between where I need to go, and I couldn't quite make it by just swinging my sword. Near the top, I managed to swing on some invisible rock and had just enough space to barely make the jump. I hugged the wall until I was back in the desert housing and head back to the city ruins. While in the city ruins, I wanted to activate this access point and to see if there was still a way to climb ladders, and surprisingly, there is. If you're facing a ladder and swing towards it, 2B will naturally gravitate onto it and you can climb it by either pushing the jump or evade button. I couldn't quite remember which one it was while writing the script, so I'll put up the proper button here on screen. Back at the resistance camp, I bought the small sword Beastbane and upgraded the virtuous contract to level 3. With that out of the way, it was now time to go to the amusement park. The way to get there is through a sewer system, and there's a ladder you have to climb down. And while there's a way to climb up a ladder without using the left stick, there's no way to climb down it. An easy solution for this is to either do a slam attack or just purposely line up your fall so that way 2B doesn't grab onto the ladder. And as much as I wanted it, going to grab the spear Virtuous Dignity was a mistake because when I got back into the sewer, I could not grab onto the ladder no matter what I did. After several minutes, I decided to reset to my last save and try again. I got back into the sewer without any problem, decided not to go for the spear this time around, and successfully got onto the ladder. When I got into the park, I killed all the past machines to hopefully get an XP up chip, which did not work. After that short and murderous endeavor, I activated this access point, swung my sword precisely on top of this park ride, and fought the tank Goliath. This fight wasn't difficult at all and finished it in just about 30 seconds. And I kid you not, trying to get past this set of stairs was harder than the boss fight. Eventually I did get up them and got on top of the roller coaster. The roller coaster ride was done like normal and I got into the room before Simone. And before heading into the room to fight Simone, I really wanted the plug-in chip from this dead android, so I spent about 3 minutes just getting the angling right so I can pick it up. And I was glad I did do that because it was an auto heal which would help out in the long run. There's nothing of too much interest in this fight because it was pretty easy. Phase 1 was over in a heartbeat and phase 2 was just a bullet hell because of all the dead android bodies and all the hacking sections. Now here's another tricky part. After you kill Simone, that's when you go to Pascal's village, and since they're all friendly machines that literally mean you no harm, I had to do my best not to kill any of them while trying to move. To help with that, I just stuck to evading. I talked to Pascal, activated the access point, then head back to the resistance camp. The shortcut to the city ruins had another crate blocking my path, so I had to go around, which also told me that every time I had to go to Pascal's village, I would need to take the long way until I unlocked fast travel. After talking to the resistance camp leader, I went back to Pascal's village, accidentally hit a friendly machine. Sorry. Then I talked to the man himself. Here was another issue I encountered. While it's possible to climb up ladders and ignore them going down, it's not possible if the ladder is in a 2D section. I spent a good 15 minutes trying to climb down it, but no matter what I did, I couldn't get past it. I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep killing you guys. So this ladder in Pascal's village is another mandatory walking section. Once you're out of the village, it's time to fight 2 Angeals in the city ruins. The shortcut that had the crate in front of it was miraculously now out of the way, so I didn't have to go around to get back to the city. Once in the city ruins, I head into the building to fight the first Angeal, and this fight was easy. There's not really much to add here. The second Angeal was a flight unit fight, so not much to add here either. The final thing I did before pulling the plug on this run was the Adam and Eve fight. Their fight was easy, and you don't even need to fight them really, because you just have to exhaust their dialogue, then it's over. I then talked to Jackass and unlocked fast travel. And that's where it ended. So yeah, nowhere near being a complete challenge run, but like I said, I wanted to make something out of this, so here we are. Maybe I'll return to this challenge some other day. I can't really say for sure, but if I do, it'll most likely be a series of streams, so at least that way it can all help me keep my sanity. And it should say a lot about this challenge that simply trying to maneuver is much harder than any enemy I encountered. But I hope you all did enjoy this video nonetheless. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.